This episode of Truth's Table is brought to you by The Witness, a Black Christian collective. Sisters, how y'all feel? Brothers, y'all all right? If this is your first time at Truth's Table, welcome to the table. And if you've been sitting at the table with us all these years, we are so grateful that you have been listening to us through these years, and we are inviting you to partner with us and support our work at patreon.com/truthstable. Now pull up a chair and have a seat at the table with us. Hey y'all, welcome to Truth's Table, Midwives of Culture for Grace and Truth. I'm Ekemini.
And I'm Christina.
This table is built by Black women and for Black women. So welcome to the table, C. How you doing, girl?
I'm waiting for this order of tacos to come.
Keeping it real.
Listen, real behind the scenes moment, because we did just order some tacos.
Yes.
And I just feel like tacos are a very, very special food. You know, they hit the spot. Tacos are
this California girl
jam.
never refuses tacos, even when they're not made in California.
I think I've only had tacos once in California. And I appreciate them, but I'm willing to take tacos anywhere. They could be somebody's after school tacos, or they could be a food truck taco. You name it.
It's a great.
There are a couple of food items that I'm just like, yes. even the downgrade version of it is still doable, you know.
That's right. Mm-hmm. But that's actually not the topic on the table.
That's not about the things that I like to eat.
Surprise, surprise. That's not what's on the table. We are here to talk about our 1 year Bookaversary.
I mean, hello.
Happy birthday to us. Happy birthday.
And see, listen, you can see me do my shimmy. If you are watching this, you know that I'm doing the birthday shimmy. This book is
a little book that could
been in the world for 1 year. Happy birthday, Truth's Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation. So we decided that we would just talk about what does it mean that this book is 1 year old?
Yes.
And all that has happened and changed and that has been learned since last April 2022.
April 26th,
when this book was born, when this baby
came
was
out
birthed.
Into the world. Have you bought this book?
Listen, that's the remix.
Have you bought this book? Yeah.
Let's make today today.
Bought it? Okay. Sorry.
God knows if you've bought it or not.
Buy it. Okay. The end. That's the end of the episode.
Religious skills. I'm just giving you an example.
Yes. My goodness. So how do we feel that our book is 1 year? It's a 1 year old.
Well, it's 1 year. It's not even quite a toddler yet. So there was a lot to make this book happen.
Yeah.
So I think in some ways it feels like, wow, it's been 1 year of just it being put out into the world, but all that it took to get it out in the world to begin with.
Yeah.
There was so much happening. And this is the midst of COVID.
Yeah, the pandemic, for sure.
The pandemic. And yeah.
Truth's Table season 6, maybe a 5. Well, actually, it was always happening during a season.
Yes.
Table, yeah.
Yes. Just finding the time to write it. I think on our personal lives, we have all kinds of dynamics going on.
Yeah.
And because we know we have lives.
We are people.
You know, there are times when I feel like that we probably read, maybe to some people, like the way that your elementary school teachers were to you. You know how you only knew them in the classroom, and then if you would see them out and about, you were like, Miss Jenkins is at the grocery store.
Yeah. What are you doing here?
So I'm always I'm like, this is actually not what we do most of the time. We're not mostly on microphones.
Yeah.
So anyway, we had a lot of life going on. Everybody had a lot of life.
Yeah.
A lot of life happening, personally, professionally, you name it, medically, all the things at this time. And so it was a real grace that the book came to be, that it actually got out in the world, that there is a book. Let me just say that. Praise God, there's a book.
Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot going on. Yeah, you're right. And you named all of it. I was like, that's true, that. Oh, yeah, that did happen. It took a lot of work, y'all. It took a lot of work, a lot of, especially as first-time authors, right? So there's things that you don't know what you don't know. So you do operate with some level, of ignorance.
Right.
Not in a pejorative sense, but just you don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what to expect. You don't know what to do. You don't know how does the marketing work? How does this work? Agent, no agent. There's stuff you're still going to learn. that you just don't know or you can't anticipate.
110%.
It just took a lot of work to do the writing, but then also doing the writing, after doing the writing, putting the book out into the world. I mean, that's something I didn't anticipate, having to do a lot of the legwork to market the book.
Yeah.
I actually assumed that's something that the publisher, does and really owns, but the publishing industry has shifted so much, according to, OG, established authors. They even talk about the ways that the industry has shifted. And so, being a newbie in the industry, you're just like, wait, what? I gotta do that? I can do that? What do y'all do?
Yeah. Yeah, right.
I'm just keeping it real. I'm telling you.
Listen, they printed this book on some paper and put it, in shipments like that. I think that one of the things that to your point, that I underestimated. I think for a lot of people, they feel like the hardest part is the writing of the book. And it is hard in a particular way. It's hard in a certain way.
It is hard.
But you actually have to sell your book.
That is a hard
have to sell your book. And so I'm like, oh, that's a thing. That's a thing.
Yeah,
you have to figure that out. And which is why it's really important that you believe in what you write. I think
for sure.
You really have to believe in what you write because you're going to have to really
make the case for why people should buy your book.
These are the facts.
Yeah. And honestly, had I known we had to really sell the book, I'm a salesperson by skill, by profession, that's what I'm trained in. That is my my job history.
That's your thing.
I'm a salesperson. So had I known that, on the front end, then I would have had a bit of a different
kind of go in the mode to do that.
Yeah, I would have gone into a sales mode, a marketing mode, a different posture. But I felt like we didn't really quite learn that until we were in it and it was time to activate. And so we could only, do so much, but it is what it is. I mean, I think some of this stuff is that you have to, if you're writing for accolades and recognition and sales numbers and all these things, you're going to be, I don't know, I think you're setting yourself up for disappointment. Let me say it that way. That might come, might happen, might trickle out, or it might not. And so you got to know your why.
And it may not happen this time around. I mean, I know people who I think of
That's right.
I think their first professional or vocational identity is author, is writer.
Yes.
And it shows like in what they produce and how they engage the world. And I think there are other people who writing is one of the extensions that you use to put whatever's important to you out in the world, right? And so I don't think of being an author as my first identity. I think of authorship and writing as a vehicle to do what I think is probably more of my primary ministry identity work, et cetera. So it's a vehicle, but it's not like my core identity. Whereas we know folks that are like, that's their top tier identity.
I think,
and I actually am really grateful that it's not my top identity because I do think it would leave me really frustrated and exhausted with the state of publishing and the politics and dynamics of it.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that's one thing that I walked away having kind of a deep appreciation for people that we know and love that are authors. First and foremost, identity. We are authors because we've
we're authors. Yeah.
But for me, I don't think of it as my top. It's not my top identity. I will write again. I have other things that I've been percolating on. But I think the thing that I know that I will do that is core to my personality, my calling is, I will certainly teach. I will certainly lead. Like those are the things that are big, and authorship is just one way to channel those other things.
Yeah. And I think for all three of us, the authors of the book, I don't think really authorship is any of our first identities. I mean, I really do think of myself as really a public theologian, what people understand as a public intellectual, and the ways, in order to get those public thoughts out, you do have to write. You do have to write. You do have to do TV. You do have to do, these different...
podcast.
You have to do a podcast, and so...
It's helpful.
Yeah, it's helpful, and I think it's helpful to do that, to think in that way, because it keeps you malleable, flexible, highly adaptable, to changing times, right? If podcasting were to end tomorrow, I think we'd actually talk about this. I'd be like, well, it's been a great run. Oh, well, it's time to move on. But I'm still going to do what God's called me to do. I'm still going to be a public intellectual. I'm still going to be thinking public theology. just what's the next vehicle?
These are the vehicles.
What's the next vehicle? You know, so, and like you said, I'm going to be working on a book. Actually, got to get that in by the end of the month. So, you know, so I am working on, you know, a solo book and things, but yeah, I actually just try not to make, I don't know, I just try not to pitch my tent too firmly, really, in any of the many things that I do, because I am a multi-hyphenate. I do a lot of different things. You know what I mean? I do voiceover work. I do consulting. I do writing. You know, I do speaking, leading, teaching. So it's really a lot of different things. So I try not to make my home in any one of those things. Clearly, it's kind of hard to do that. There'll be like 10 homes. I do a lot of things, you know, so
exactly.
So it's helpful to be able to go, okay, this first season we put this down. This next season we pick this up, you know, and so I'm grateful for the book.
Yeah.
You know, in this season that's been a year. Yeah, I don't know. What were some things that you would do differently? Now?
Differently now?
Yeah. 1 year later, now that the book is out into the world, now you've written it, you've had the experience of publishing a book, you know, through a traditional, you know, publisher. What would you do differently now? Or,
you know, I think that I would have loved to, and again, I may not have had control to do this. So it's the idea of, it's almost like magic wand. Like this is all,
yeah, exactly.
This is all hypothetical that will never happen. But I think I would have wanted to give myself the ability to write with a bit more breathing room. I mean, you know, I had been quite sick. I think when I think over the last 3 years, and I don't know how much publicly I've talked about it, but I mean, I had COVID multiple times, but I also had a surgery over the last 3 years, and then moved to another part of the country. We just had a lot of jazz going on.
It was.
And I think there are so many things that I have done in my life, professional things and personal things, that it's very rare I've had the privilege to center on a thing at a time. So even in this book project, I had another book project that came out right before it, Faithful Anti-Racism. And so I had that project, although I started that much earlier, but it was a more technically demanding project from a research and analysis standpoint. Then this book was more of kind of an emotive, you know, emotively demanding with storytelling. But the other one was more kind of analytically demanding. But all that stuff is in the same pot at the same time. So I think if I had to do it over again, I would have been able to dedicate a sabbatical season of writing to it. That would have been very sweet, very lovely to do. But it is what it is. I mean, you got to do what you got to do. So that's the kind of street I live on. It's like, you got to do what you got to do. Yeah. And so that's one thing I think I would have done differently. The other thing is that, you know, I've talked about this. I enjoy titling things and thinking about the way that we can use language to summarize something. I would have titled the book differently in retrospect. And again, I think it comes out of my clinical background.
Any title that comes to mind?
I think we would have started with Musings instead of started with Truth's Table. I think there were probably marketing decisions around that I probably should have thought more about and pushed back on at the time. But I think leading with Black Women's Musings would have been wise. And then the second title would have been a compilation of essays by Truth's Table, et cetera, right? Right. But I would have flipped it. And I think because the book required too much knowledge of who we were as a podcasting brand. Yeah. When you kind of walk by. Now, with that being said, we did everything we could to amplify it from our vantage point. But I think starting with Musings would have been a wise call. Those two, for a practical level, those are two things I would have done differently. How about you? As you think about the process of writing, what was created and all that, what would you say if you had a magic wand? What would you have modified along the way?
Yeah, I think that, definitely retitling that, just seeing the importance of titling the book. I think Black women something, starting leaning it.
She muses. I think I probably would have leaned into something like that.
Yeah, because I think it's important to see, you know, name your audience, you know, name who you're, you know, I think it's just helpful. You know, I've seen that even just with some of our peers. I was like, oh yeah, that's really titled really well, you know, and those, you know, those units move. So I think definitely retitling it, you know, for sure. I think I would have actually pushed, and keep it very well, I would have pushed for a much bigger advance, much bigger, because of the PR marketing aspect. And then would have, with that advance, paid somebody to PR, to do for a longer time, right? You know what I mean? For a longer time to actually handle that for 6 months, 4 to 6 months. I would have probably wanted us to be able to have that in our back pocket and just fund it, and that would have to come out of the advance, what else would I have done, differently? I think I feel good about the chapters that I chose to do. I think they were the right things, the right topics. And I still feel good about that. And you're always going to change, right? And shift from when you wrote it. So, there's things maybe you would add or take away or whatnot. But I as we've been teaching, because we've been teaching through our book in the Facebook Black Women's Discipleship Group. And as I reread it, I was like, okay, no, this still holds up. Which is good,
You can still stand by it.
I can still stand by it. I still, believe in that. I'm going to say, okay, particularly like the singleness one, because that was my most vulnerable, chapter. And most vulnerable piece I've written to date is the Hidden in Plain Sight, a Single Black Woman's Manifesto, and in the love section of the book. And so I reread it in order to teach it. And I was like, okay, I still stand by this. Maybe some of my development is, has changed, or my even dating experiences have evolved a bit. But I'm off the dating apps. Praise God. So
go get your liberty.
That's right. I'm off. Either God's gonna do it or it ain't gonna get done.
Well.
But it ain't gonna happen through the apps for me no more. I'm done. But so I stand by that. I feel good about those chapters. I think that's good. Because some people are like, well, maybe we needed something lighter in there, or maybe, but that's not Truth Table.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just not, that's just not us, right? We don't really deal in fluff.
Yeah. No, it's heavy. And I think even when I think about your chapters, Michelle's, and the ones I contributed as well, they were deeply personal. I mean, they came out of our own lived narratives. And I think that I've always talked about having a volume 2 because because I don't, it isn't so much that I would want to change the past. It's just that I feel like there are some additional topics on the table that would serve a next volume of this book, for example. So, and also, one of the things I really appreciated about it was that, we knew that Truth Table would be, that we would co-lead it, and that, it had started and been founded with Michelle Higgins and who I refer to as Mimi. It started with Michelle, and but we knew that was gonna shift. So we knew that before our audience knew that, and all, So in a lot of ways, this book represented kind of the final note for the work that we did together as a trio. So kind of
the first iteration.
Absolutely. Capturing our work together, capturing our voices together, and kind of what was developed and shaped. So I think it has a special place in my heart because of that as well. Yeah. Because it becomes a way of putting a bow on a journey for us. And then obviously Truth Table has continued to go on and has shifted in some ways. And we have, as always, kind of go back to our core mission, our core purpose over and over again. And that helps us to shape, what this iteration of Truth Table is looking like, what it's focused on, what it's going to lean into. So I have positive memories about that, about it, being a part of that, and that I don't have any regrets about that bow, that final bow of the three voices together in this book.
Me either. I think that's the best way. I think I can't think of a better way, actually, to close a particular chapter, of Truth Table, and then to begin, another. So, let's take a quick commercial break. And then when we come back, we're going to talk more about our book, our Bookaversary, our 1-year-old book. Truth Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation. Y'all make sure you get a copy.
I mean, right now, where all books are sold.
What y'all waiting on? We'll be right back. Don't go nowhere. Sisters, there isn't a conference like Joy and Justice. This year, the Joy and Justice Conference is back with its theme, Rise Up and Flourish. See, most conferences are heavily intellectual or heavily inspirational, but the Joy and Justice 23 conference is the perfect combination of both. It's a space for hope, refreshing, and a place to honor God as you were created to be. At the Rise Up and Flourish Conference, we will tackle the injustices that try to hold Black people down and steal our joy. For 2 days, we will gather like family. The Witness, a Black Christian collective team, and their lineup of dynamic guests will speak to your core concerns. You will encounter dynamic worship, thoughtful presentations, and meaningful conversations that will empower you to experience the joy and justice you seek. The conference will include powerful talks from Danielle Koch, Jamar Tisby, Tyler Burns, Christina Edmondson, and yours truly. Life-giving worship will be led by Chantel Varnado, founder of Kingdom United Collective. We will also celebrate the upcoming release of the BCC's Vice President Ali Henny's new book, I Won't Shut Up, Finding Your Voice When the World Tries to Silence You. We want to see you at the Joy and Justice Conference Rise Up and Flourish 2023 on June 23rd through June 24th, 2023 in Chicago's south suburbs. The conference will be held at Lilydale First Baptist Church's Legacy Campus located at 424 Indianwood Boulevard, Park Forest, Illinois, 60466. Buy your ticket today at riseupandflourish.com. Regular price tickets are $125 and $200 at the door, but Truth Table listeners will receive 25% off of your ticket price when you use the code TruthsTable at checkout. Don't forget, you'll get 25% off when you use the promo code TruthsTable at checkout when you purchase your conference ticket at riseupandflourish.com. Register today, and we will see you there.
All right, we are back at the table. It's our Bookaversary. Truth Table, Black women's music on life, love, and liberation. So,
Yes.
what would you say about the feedback? What are we hearing from the sisters and the brothers in the standing room section and the people?
Well, listen, we did
because the book audience is not always the same as the listening audience.
Oh, it's not.
So,
It's not. It's not. And I think that, I certainly didn't write this book for myself. It's not a journal. It's not like, it was written for others.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably been the most fun and encouraging part of it. Like the work that we do how it's received by people outside of us, that is what makes it worth it. And the way in which it, is a catalyst for them to do some type of introspection or change or to launch their own thing, their own book, their own ministry or whatever. And I think we've had the unique privilege over the last several years at this point of having people who will tell us that they have been inspired by our work and they've created their own thing, right? So we know a number of podcasts or authors and people that we have pushed behind the scenes to step out and, and that we've encouraged to do all kinds of things. And so that's inspiring to me. Like the educator in me is, that's what educators are. We really tend to have an investment in this idea of duplication, not creating a bunch of mini-me's in a weird narcissistic way, but inspiring people to own their gifts, their own skill, and to get out there. And so I think the podcast has done that, but the book has done that as well. Mm-hmm. And I love when I get feedback from people about certain chapters. I think the one that I wrote where I get the most feedback is probably the forgiveness chapter. Mm-hmm. That is the one that I think most people, and I intentionally tried to pick some themes that I thought would be kind of timeless in a sense. Mm-hmm. Not that the other ones aren't enduring factors in society for sure. But I think of forgiveness at core at the Christian understanding, as well as the way it's misunderstood and manipulated. So that is the one where I think I have gotten the most emails or messages about, and how people have decided to choose a path of the process of forgiving others or forgiving themselves, forgiving God. And also having the ability to recognize when someone else is using some form of spiritual abuse to manipulate them into a way of not seeking justice and calling it forgiveness. So that those are the responses that have been most important to me. How about you in terms of feedback on the book in general, but also the things that you wrote specifically, and when you think about the people that we talked to or that you've run into out and about in the world?
Yeah, I know. Out and about in the world is it's so interesting. Like, you know, you just never know how your book is impacting someone. And so actually when I went to the UN, in Geneva, Switzerland. There was actually a sister there that actually came with her book in hand, talking about how the book has impacted her and how she, is really grateful for it. And I was like, what? Like all the way here in Switzerland? She's American too, but it was just like, what? It was just like, it was a sweet surprise. Let's say,
absolutely,
it was a real sweet surprise, and someone who I respect, and who is also now a comrade, in the struggle. But it's just like, wow, you just don't know who's reading your work. You don't know how it's impacting them and shaping them. You don't know who is paying attention, to you. So some of the feedback that I have gotten has always been encouraging. It's typically on the Hidden in Plain Sight, a Single Black Woman's Manifesto,
for sure.
and or colorism, the audacious perseverance of colorism.
Yeah.
Some people are like, wow, I really... I never really understood colorism in this way, right? So it's really eye-opening, or for some people that know me, like I have a friend from college, my gay BFF from college, I went to visit him, a while back, and he was like, I'm reading your book and just working through it. And he's like, I never knew. I can't believe it's all that time that we were in college. I hope I don't cry. Because that time in college, I never knew.
Yeah.
That you were dealing with this. That you didn't like who you saw. In the, and it's a trip because we literally
you so differently.
Because we shared the bed together. Like this is somebody that really, really good friend of mine. Because he was facing all types of mess. From his own roommate. So I was like, well, come stay with me. Come, be with me. And so he was literally we were together like peas in a pod like this. And so that was so. Wow, somebody that really knew you intimately, but still did not know, what you were holding on to, what you were carrying, what you were dealing with, what you were grappling with. So, so hearing from him, and, hearing him say that, like, I had no clue. So he's like, I'm taking my time with the book, because it's just, whew. He was like, there's the humor in there really helps. But he's like, it's heavy. It's like, wow. He's like, I did not know this is what you were dealing with. And then of course with the singleness, a lot of this is just feeling seen.
For sure.
Very, very much feeling seen, very much, baffled maybe by my story, but like I get it, because I'm also living this, or my life runs somewhat parallel in some ways, or there's some areas of divergence, but so that's been good and affirming, of course, to hear that from people. I haven't heard anything negative, although I guess some people might not be inclined to typically say something negative.
I'm sure there's thoughts.
I'm sure there's thoughts, but I haven't, and it has actually a very strong rating actually on I think Amazon and Goodreads, but yeah, those are the two chapters that have really that I get a lot of feedback from, and I hear a lot of thank yous. For, because I'm telling you that singleness one, I mean, in colorism, I had to really be very vulnerable, and those are not. That's not.
Well, you made a choice to be. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't have to be, but you gave that as a gift, and it's the other one for me that I think stands out, that I've heard people have texted me if they know me or whatever.
Is it marriage?
It's probably the marriage chapter.
Yeah, I was married now.
And that one, and people usually it's married people who reach out to me that will say like, okay, that's chapter one. I need more. Like, can you give me
give us a whole book?
Like, let's just do a workshop. And I was like, okay. But I also think that there's a sense in which Christians who are trying to have a marriage that is not a caricature.
Yeah.
Or is it some kind of bondage, some kind of, domination or hierarchical arrangement. They're looking for a paradigm that is faithful to Scripture, where people seek to see each person thrive. And I think they're recognizing just how limited the resources seem to be, particularly amongst people who would consider themselves, for lack of a better word, kind of orthodox. Right.
Traditional.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Right. They just feel like that it feels very limited. So, and also, and I think we do have to be in the kind of company that encourages us in whatever journey that we're in. And so that's where I've gotten feedback, is in those spaces. You know, the book ends with those blank sections.
Yeah, notes.
Right, note sections where the goal at least was to have people inspired from the writings and then create their own musings. Mm-hmm. And this is where, you know, I would want to appeal to our audience that we would love to read some of your musings that you're comfortable sharing. You know, we would love to hear what chapter you have added to this book.
Yes. Yes.
What's the topic, the chapter? Yeah, what are your musings? And so we've given you a year. Happy birthday, book.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. The little book that could.
Listen.
And and so we would love for you to share those with us, because I am curious to hear what was stirred up in the audience.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love see what would you say, you know, as we come to our close. What would you say? No, for real, but we really
everything is a sermon. Carry
not
on.
Like a black preacher.
Like this
we
is
come to our
we're telling the truth.
We ain't behind the pulpit.
Are you implying that the saints of God are being facetious when they say that? Carry on.
What would be like that, I guess, for you, the highlights, you know, of, you know, we talked about some of the, you know, the hard things, the things we change, you know, but what's the highlight, you know, of,
Oh, well, I think you go,
putting this book out.
I do not think that I think for the rest of my professional journey, I will feel honored to have been nominated for an NAACP Image Award. I think that it's a huge deal. I think that we could not carry on enough about how big of a deal that was. And I think when we wrote the book, I don't remember us actually sitting around saying it's going to get this, it's going to get that. I don't think that's the approach that we took. I think really our goal was like, can we just meet this deadline and get this book out there? Because I'm tired and I really actually can't think right now. So when that came through, it was just like sweet, and it was a true God wink and a source of encouragement. I think I feel like in the last year, I've been uniquely blessed. Both projects that I've participated in, written projects, have received a variety of awards. The podcast itself has received awards.
Yeah.
And, you know, I know I don't do things with the expectation, because I do think that we're niche. We are niche. I'm very aware.
Niche.
I am very aware and function with the expectation that everybody will not like what we do. I mean, I don't intentionally try to make them angry, but I just know the nicheness of it. We talk about political topics that some people don't want to reckon with. Matter of fact, to the tune of millions don't want to reckon with. We talk about
reparations now.
I mean, very reasonable, y'all.
Gun control.
Now, today, stat. So we know that people don't like that. We also are pretty old school in terms of our kind of our embrace of Christian faith, and Christians' faith embrace of us. We've not thrown out the church, although we can critique sociologically the church. And so there are many reasons why people will be like, I don't know about them. But to receive both recognition and honor in places of faith and in secular institutions and in civil rights organizations, which is a significant part of my life's work and ministry, is around issues of justice. Mm-hmm. It is a real kindness. Yes. And I don't take it for granted. So that, I would say, that's the biggest surprise and gift, is the level of recognition for the podcast, for this book, and in the other book that I worked on as well in the last year. It's just been really sweet. What would you say?
Yeah, for me, it's definitely the NAACP Image Award nomination for our book, because this book really was a labor of love. Yeah. I mean, it was,
and it's real Christian.
Of course. And True Stable is a labor of love. The podcast is a labor of love. Y'all know we've been at this for, goodness,
75 years.
Yeah. I think 6 years, 7 seasons. So we've gotten, some awards there and accolades for that. Praise God for that. But something about the book felt even a little bit more special because, and maybe because of, for me, what I poured into it. It was not a small thing for me to write those chapters.
Yeah.
I had to do a lot of work, a lot of self-work, a lot of inner work for me to get to the point where I can, tell the truth, about my experiences and something that I'm currently living.
Right.
Well, actually, both things I'm living in.
Right.
Right. Dealing with colorism, as a dark-skinned Black woman, that's something I'm still living with, right? And contending with, the stratification that comes with that. But then also singleness and the ways those interact, and so those are some very real issues, some real core issues in my own personal life. And so it felt really like a kiss from God, what I call a kiss from God, to have gotten that Image Award nomination. Like, whoa, and like from goodness, one of the premier civil rights organizations in the U.S. and the oldest, and NAACP. I mean, I was just like, there's no bigger.
Yeah.
I don't think it's bigger than that.
This is not a Christian. This is certainly not a Christian organization, right?
Yeah.
Although it has significant roots and connections to the Black church. But yeah, I think that's what struck me as well, because out of all the many things that were nominated and the many people that were nominated, there's no doubt that Truth's Table represented the most Christian.
Oh, the book is Jesus
thing nominated
for sure,
and I mean across multiple categories. In many ways, unless we're talking about like the gospel music category. So for our book to stand next to what, for lack of a better term, secular books, somebody made a decision. Somebody's, and whoever you are, thank
God
you.
Did.
Listen, but
God
using people, certainly,
people.
to say like, let's move this one forward.
Listen, I was like, when it happened, I was like, God did it. Because I was like, this is a very Jesus-y book.
Yes.
It really is. But to your point, that Truth's Table really is niche, though. So we can talk about the sociology and the theology, and we could talk about pop culture and weave it all in with laughter and everything. And you get that from this book. It is actually a true representation of Truth's Table, and so it's been an honor and a joy to have written this book, and we will be writing our own individual, projects, and we'll see what other book projects the Lord might have in the future for Truth's Table. We're always percolating with ideas, so we always got something cooking, but
the holy streets are talking.
That's right. The holy streets are talking. But I do thank God, for that we can say that we are authors.
Yeah.
That a lot of people can't say that.
Oh, it's a huge deal. I mean, whenever I get into my my writing or education or learning kick, a lot of it has to do with my family of origin and culture and HBCU stuff. But yeah, like I take it very seriously that the history of Black people not being able to read, to write, to contribute, to not being considered as intellectuals, and yet are. And having to create different forms of learning, of communication, in incredibly creative ways, from the Hush Harbors to what we have today, and how we navigate even the podcast space. It's within that tradition. I can see the direct line, and I think that it's a part of worship to honor the gifts that God has given to us, to put out books, to contribute to the conversations, to contribute to the culture. But I don't take it for granted as a Black woman to be able to do that. Knowing that literally I descend from people who were killed for seeking to read, let alone to write.
For doing less, right?
Yes.
Exactly.
So it will always be a big deal to me.
It is. It's not a small thing. So we thank God, and we thank y'all, of course, for also not only sitting at the table, but also reading our book.
And if you haven't read it yet.
And if you haven't bought it or read it yet, we invite you to go ahead and buy it and read it. And we do hope that it will bless you, that you'll be able to take something away from it. There's something in there, I feel like, for everybody, somewhere.
For sure.
Somewhere in this book.
Well, even just hearing other people's stories is a way that it helps to sharpen us.
Exactly. It does. So anyway, happy first birthday to our book.
Happy birthday, book.
Truth's Table, Black Women's Musings on Life, Love, and Liberation. Thank y'all so much for taking a seat at the table with us this week. Let's keep the conversation going. Tweet us, share with us your thoughts, email us your thoughts about our book and our book anniversary and your musings. We want to hear from you. We want to know your musings. So email us at asktruthstable@gmail.com. And we'll see you soon on the next Truth's Table. Bye, y'all.